So, the Cleveland Browns have waived Obo Okoronkwo, and he didn't wave back. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, then please do me a favour and hit that subscribe button. So I'm sure everyone has seen the news by now. I know, I'm a day late, I know, I'm sorry. The Cleveland Browns have released veteran pass rusher Obo Okoronkwo. First and foremost, I'm annoyed because it took me about 4 months to learn how to say his name when we initially signed him 2 years ago. So to only get 2 seasons of, being able to show off that I can pronounce his name correctly kind of annoyed me. And any long-time subscriber, I know that one of the only names that I can that I can pronounce correctly. But got to get into it. What it means for the Browns, why they cut him, etc. I'm going to try and make this as quick as I possibly can, because I'll be completely honest. Just got back from a 350-mile trip for work. Sun blazing through the driver's seat window the whole way. You could probably still see the marks from my sunglasses that I was unable to take off all day. So feeling a little bit ropey. Obviously, hay fever doesn't help. I'm sure anyone out there with hay fever knows how horrible it is at this time of the year. So apologies for any croakiness in my throat or any snot that comes out of my nose during this video. But also, I meant to be at the pub in about 45 minutes. So hopefully I can get this recorded and out in that time. If not, who knows? But as I said, we'll jump straight into it. The Cleveland Browns have released Obo Okoronkwo. First and foremost, appreciative of everything that he did for the city of Cleveland. I think he was a fan favourite for most. He was a very lively, very energetic, always entertaining in any, whether it was a social media thing or any interview or anything like that. Always a lot of fun. For me, in case anyone hasn't noticed from some of the attire that I wear, I was a little bit of a skater kid growing up. He was a skater boy, certainly applied. And to see Obo also, he was a skateboarder growing up as well. Still likes it, still dresses a bit like a skater. So I think the only NFL player I've ever been able to have that relatable aspect to. So that was cool to see. So, grateful for everything he did. Obviously 2023, his first year, went to the playoffs. So, even though he was only here for 2 years, he can say something that quite a lot of players that have played for the Cleveland Browns since '99 can't say, which is that he's played in a playoff game for the Cleveland Browns. 30 games played, I think 7.5 sacks, 17 tackles for loss, 54 tackles. So, not overly productive, nothing jumps out, but, for a rotational pass rusher, not too shabby. So, it's not like he was dreadful, underperformed or anything. He's not leaving with any bad blood. To be honest, I think a lot of fans are, sad to see him go. So that just shows, the kind of impact he did have on this team. But moving on to, why they did this, this wasn't really a surprise for me. I noticed on social media, quite a lot of people were quite taken aback by this and surprised. But I'll be honest, and this is not me just doing the whole, I know everything. You can go check some of my previous videos. I've commented on it quite a few times, especially when they signed, in free agency, some more depth pieces. I spoke then that there's going to be an odd man out. There's just too many guys in that room. And then when you kind of look at the contracts, match that with the production, it kind of pointed towards Obo being that, being the odd guy out. So this didn't really surprise me. Why did they do it? Kind of as I just said, they got so many guys in that room now, so many good depth pieces in that room. Obo was due $3 million this year, and cutting him also saves $5 million next year, just because of the way that the Browns like to do their void years at the end of contracts. So for everyone that says that the void years are bad things, this is an example of how they can be good. Because you're essentially cutting, you're saving $3 million this year, but you're also saving $5 million next year. So you're getting 2 years worth of salary cap relief. So 8 million in total they will be saving over the next 2 years, which it's not a lot, and it's not like they had to make this move to. I've seen some people obviously make the jokes that they always do, like, oh, I thought the Browns were fine with the cap and all of this stuff. This is not one of those, oh, we need to get under the cap moves. This is purely just a staying flexible, giving themselves a little bit more wiggle room this season if they need to make a move, and obviously next off season and going into next season as well. It just gives you more flexibility, and while it's also not a lot of money in NFL sense, 5 million, I think, next year, obviously, and then 3 million this year for a, rotational depth piece at best this year, which is what Obo would have been. That's quite a lot of money. Even though I said it's not a lot, but it is more than you would pay someone for that role. So completely understand why they've done this. As I said, there's just not enough space in that room. They brought in, obviously, Tyrone Shanika. They also brought in Julian Okoronkwo, who I can't remember what the guy's name is on Twitter, the guy that does the film breakdown, quite a questionable character of a person. The reason he was shocked is because they only signed one defensive end this free agency, when actually they signed two. And you could also argue that, yes, Malik Collins is a defensive tackle, but he had 5 sacks last year alone, and as I just said, Obo had 7.5 in 2 years. They drafted Mason Graham. He's another, yes, defensive tackle, but pass rush upside and can be moved around the line, just like Malik Collins can. Mike Hall coming back from injury, same applies to him. So, it's not even just the edge rusher room that what they've added to, which kind of, nudges Obo out of it. It's also that defensive tackle room as well. It's just the defensive line as a whole. We all know how Jim Schwartz likes to rotate those guys, likes to move them all across the line. That's just less room for Obo. It's not that he's just competing against the edge rushers. He's technically also competing against some of these defensive tackles as well as pass rushers. Obo is a bit of a specialist pass rusher. He's not the biggest. He's not very, he's not really useful in first and second down because he's not really a good run stopper. So he is kind of a situational pass rusher. He's not the biggest. He's a guy that relies on speed. So as I just kind of explained, for someone that only offers that, where does that fit in when you've got the other guys in there as well? Alex Wright and as Isaiah Maguire, I am a big fan of both of them, sang both of their praises last year. Alex Wright in particular the year before as well, when he had a great year. Really excited to see what those guys can do, and they just offer more versatility than an Obo. They're bigger, they're longer, they can play first and second down. You're not worried about them being out there for those downs. They're much better run stoppers, so they can, but also can offer the pass rush upside. And if anything, I could probably sit here and argue that Alex Wright and Isaiah Maguire have borderline outperformed Obo last year as pass rushers. So when you factor in also the run stopping upside with those two guys as well, just being bigger bodies, it just makes more sense to go with those two guys. And as I said, also brought in Tyrone Shanika and Julian Okoronkwo as well. You brought them both on veteran minimum deals, much cheaper than what you were paying Obo. So it's not that he just had to beat those guys out. He had to really convincingly beat those guys out to justify getting paid, a few million more. And he clearly didn't do that. And I don't think any of us expected him to do that. So, a lot of people do the whole Tyrone Shanika stole his job. I suppose you could look at it like that, but I don't think it's one guy in particular. I think it's kind of everyone on that defensive line as a whole, and there's just not been enough room for him. That defensive line, I've spoke for weeks now, it's the most, it's definitely the best unit, it's the deepest unit on the team. So even that alone and trying to win a job in that room is hard enough as it was. So let alone with that extra price tag that you need to justify. So that's why it makes sense. That's why they did it. In my opinion, that's just how I kind of read the Leafs. As I said, I expected one of these guys to be the odd man out. Didn't expect it to, of course, be Myles Garrett. That's never obviously going to be the case. Alex Wright, from everything we've seen going into the last year of his rookie contract, I don't think you can justify cutting him. And especially, I've seen some rumours in the last couple of days that the Browns might be interested in one of those, get ahead of the market deals for Alex Wright this training camp, which I would welcome. I would more than welcome, because, as I said, I'm a big Alex Wright fan. So it's just Isaiah Maguire as well, still on his rookie contract, coming off a really, really impressive year last year, and is the pass rush has been inconsistent. It was better last year, and that's kind of what gets you excited from what we've seen last year. But even if all of that fails, he's arguably one of the better run stoppers, definitely one of the better run stoppers at the defensive end position on the team. So there's definitely, there's snaps out there for him. So that's the reason why essentially they've cut him. Trim the fat essentially on the team. It's not that they needed to save this money because, oh no, we're in cap hell and we need to cut our best players because we need to save money. It's nothing to do with that. It's purely just trimming the fat. Giving yourself a little bit more flexibility for a player that you probably would have cut come training camp anyway. So at least it gives Obo a chance to, get onto another roster before training camp. You never want to see a guy they get cut too late. It can obviously be a lot harder for them to find a team and find a role. But as I said, that's why they did it. You look at the snap counts as well. Obo, his first year was at 53%. And then last year that dropped down to 45%. As I said, he was already a rotational depth piece on this team anyway. So when they then brought in more of those guys in Tyrone Shanika and Julian Okoronkwo, the writing was kind of on the wall. So that's why I think they do it. And, what does it mean? As I said, I just think it means that it just shows you how confident they are in these young guys and in this defensive line. They obviously have a style that they like to play. They like their guys to be flexible, and when you have the luxury of being able to have that kind of situational pass rusher, sure, it's great, of course, in those situations. But with the Browns' kind of structure of that defensive line room, it does make more sense, as I said earlier, to have those guys that are a bit more positional flexibility in an Alex Wright, in an Isaiah Maguire, and Tyrone Shanika and Okoronkwo as the depth pieces. So, that, yes, you don't want to see any guy that you like go. Always sucks to see him go. But this was pretty expected for me. Whether it was training camp or earlier, I thought this was going to be the outcome for Obo. So I'm not that surprised by it. Yes, as I just said, never want to see him go, but not surprised, and it doesn't change any of my excitement for this defensive line next year. Whether Obo was on this team or not, no discredit to him, doesn't affect that at all for me. This defensive line is still going to be really good. Still really excited to see how these guys, play together. So yeah, it's maybe an emotional loss for some people. Obo was a great guy, as I mentioned earlier, but I don't think it's too much of a loss in terms of the team. Are they putting a lot of faith in their young guys? Maybe. Are they putting too much faith in their young guys? Maybe. But in the end of the day, I don't think anyone sees this season as this isn't. We're not going into this year with the same expectations as we went in with last year. I mean, a lot of people this year are just trying to see it as a feel-out year and see what we have with these young quarterbacks, etc. So if that is what you're doing, why would you not see what you have with the young players at the other positions as well? As I always say, there's more positions than quarterback. Let's see what the young guys in the defensive end room can do. But that will do it for me today, guys. As I said, I've just looked down at the time, trying to make this one as quickly as possible, trying to get to my friend's birthday as quickly as possible. So I will leave it there. Okoronkwo, I know I can pronounce his name, and I can't even pronounce basic other names, which is hilarious. Sucks to see him go, but I don't think it changes this defensive line's projection and potential for next year much at all. To be honest, I don't think it does at all. But that will do it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. If you do enjoy my content, then please drop this video a like. Hit that subscribe button. It's free, but it really, really helps out my channel. You can also check the links in the description to see where you can follow and interact with me on social media. As I always say, I'm trying to build a community of Cleveland Browns fans, and even if that means I only get to talk to one fan a day, I'm happy because I'm talking Browns football with the best fan base in the world. Thanks again for watching, guys. Have an amazing weekend. Enjoy the heat if you are here in the UK. I think there's a heat wave over in America as well. So make sure that you wear your sunscreen, drink lots of water, but have a great time, guys. But most importantly, go Browns.